important is popularity to you in this world? Is it important? Is it more important than you realize? Was it important to you when you were in high school, or if you're in high school or college right now? Is it important to you now? The quote-unquote popular crowd looks at you in some positive light for the way you present yourself or things that you like. We all have this draw towards this desire to be liked and popular. One of the jokes I often throw out in my house with my wife is, hey, how about when our kids turn 13, we kind of fast forward to 25 or 27 or maybe 30 to the years where they start to like us again. You know what I mean? Because there's this phase in most kids' lives where they don't want anything to do with mom and dad. Mom and dad are kind of embarrassment. They're ashamed of you in some ways, and they say, I want a normal life over here, because there's a perception of looking at other people's lives and seeing things that are wrong with your life, and so they become ashamed of their parents, and they say, hey, can you drop me off a half a mile before school? I don't want to be seen with you. I'm like, listen, I wiped your butt when you were a baby. You can be seen with me when you're 16, okay? But anyway, I digress. We don't like that feeling of being ashamed. And when we get that because somebody else is trying to impress the wrong person, or someone that ultimately isn't that important in their life, it's heartbreaking. Jesus, in this passage, in the section on where Jesus predicts his death, he mentions in verse 28, he says, if anyone is ashamed of me and my message, the Son of Man will be ashamed of that person when he returns in his glory and the glory of the Father and the holy angels. Jesus is saying here, if you're ashamed of me, if you're embarrassed that you're a disciple of mine, then whenever you come to judgment, when you come to the end of your life and you stand before the Father, I'll be ashamed of you. He's saying that when you are a follower of Jesus, if you're a disciple, you should be so all in that you're not ever embarrassed by him. You're not ashamed to tell somebody that you're a Christian, to tell somebody that you believe in Jesus, because we've talked about this. There are certain circles where you will be mocked, you will be sneered at, you'll be laughed at, you may become the butt of the joke, right? And Jesus has just sent his disciples out into cities where they were no doubt rejected, where they had to shake the dust off of their feet and say, okay, that town has made their choice. Their blood is not on my hands. So they go about their day and go about their mission to those who are going to be more receptive. You and I have this tendency to be, it's a sin pull. It's an awful thing that we all struggle with at times, where we can become ashamed. We can kind of pull back and forget that the only person that you need to be quote unquote popular with is Jesus himself. I want Jesus to know my name and to know me personally and intimately as I get to know him personally and intimately. The very one who made you, who knows the numbers of hairs on your head, the one who loves you that much, the one who wove you together in your mother's womb. How dare we ever be ashamed of him? And yet it happens. And yet in our humanness, in our sin nature, in our pull towards just living for the flesh and the temporal and the here and now and the tangible, we can forget that the guy at work or the person at the store or the friend at the club or the kid in class or the professor that thinks he knows more than he knows, that person's opinion matters. And so we, instead of just saying, sorry, buddy, see you later, this is who I am, we find ourselves being ashamed of the very one who came and laid his life down for the forgiveness of our sins. May we not make that mistake. May God's grace be big enough, deep enough, and wide enough to cover us when we make that mistake and one day step before the judgment seat and have to give an account. May we be able to stand and say, when I was sneered at, when I was challenged, I was not ashamed. And so Jesus will not be ashamed of us by his love and by his grace. Today I learned this about Jesus, and on this day I will this. Go forth and do not be ashamed. Be proud and be confident and live your life for this audience of one, for the popularity that you have in heaven. Where else is it worth? Where else in this life can you have popularity that is not temporary? It is not vain. It is not ultimately meaningless and fading away. It is only our popularity in heaven that matters in the end and holds it all together. So let's live in that way, all in for Jesus. Have a great day. I love you. Bye.
Words sent down from heaven as the power of Christ.